Amuni Bhagavat Rupe Ayate Te Anuvarnite Rube Apina Griyanti Maya Sriste Vipastita Amuni Bhagavat Rupe
Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Neither of the above forms of the Lord are just described unto you from the material angle of vision, is accepted by the pure devotees of the Lord who know Him well. Please repeat. Neither of the above forms.
Sorry?
Please repeat. Neither of the above forms.
Neither of the above forms
of the Lord. As just described. Unto you. From the material angle of vision. Is accepted. By pure devotees of the Lord. Who know Him well. Oh, that's it. So I'll read the purport a little later. So first the context. So in this chapter we've been seeing how just before the universal form of the Lord has been manifesting, and here Shukadeva Goswami is saying it is Maya Srishti. So why is he saying Maya Srishti? Because it is temporary in nature. Universal form of the Lord is necessitated when the Srishti happens, or the creation happens. When the creation happens, Krishna has already done the primary creation, Brahma is doing the secondary creation. So these two things, when you combine animatically, so it is a universal form, primary and secondary creation. So it is a temporary manifestation. So that's why it's called Maya Srishti. And it is not unreal, it is real, but it is temporary. So we saw from the text number 10 to text number 30. So we saw how different senses of the Lord were manifested, and how the different sense objects were manifested, and the predominating deities were manifested, appointed, and finally the sense objects were available because of the Lord's mercy. So sense objects, namely Shabda, Rupa, Sparsha, Rasa and Gandha. Shabda means speech, Rupa means form, Sparsha means touch, Rasa means taste, and Gandha means smell. And similarly all the different senses were manifested, namely Karna or ears, or Akshini, 2 eyes, a pair of eyes, then Nasika or nose, or Jihva or tongue. All these 5 different senses were manifested. Predominating deities like Varuna, Vayu, Agni, and Indra, they were all manifested. So Indra is actually a predominating deity of mind. So the previous verse starting from 33. So 33 is not 30, 32. 31 it says till 13, as I mentioned, different senses were manifested. And the verse 31 is very interesting. So it talks about Tvak Charma Mamso Ridiro Medo Majasti Datavaha. Saptadataha were created. Saptadataha means 7 different dhatus. So this is very important. So you might have the senses, but you should have the body. So senses are specific organs of the body. They should be located on the bodily parts. So the body itself consists of the Saptadhatu. So what are the Saptadhatu? Starting from skin, it goes inside. So you have skin, you have the muscle, then the blood, then the fat, the the marrow and the bone goes inside and inside. So all the 7 layers are called Saptadhatu. So from the time of even the manifestation of the embryo, the first thing that manifests is the skin. Because the skin has to be there to separate the body of the mother to the body of the child. And within the skin, all the different other Saptadhatus become slowly manifested, starting from muscle. So you have skin, then you have the muscle, and inside the muscle you have the veins and the arteries taking the blood and putting the blood inside the nourishment. And then you should have the fat, which is a part of the inside tissue. And then you have the marrow and the bone. So all these things are the internal manifestation of the body. So in fact, all the sense organs are also part of this 7 Saptadhatus. So the physical appearance is actually because there is a muscle, there is a skin, everything is there. It's actually nothing but the Saptadhatus. But the specific functionality is enabled. So Saptadhatus gets created. And the next verse, very beautifully, he says, Shukadeva Goswami says, all this Etat Bhagavato Rupam Stulam Te Vyahritam Maya, whatever I said before, all the Bhagavat Rupam. So Maya Adivihi Cha Avarane Ashtabir Bahiravitam. So all the external manifestation is made possible by this Ashtadhatu. Saptadhatu is there, you just saw that. Saptadhatu is the bodily parts. And Ashtadhatu is the 8 difference, the primary creation Lord makes. Namely the Bhumi, Apo, Nalo, Vayu and Kham, 5 different Panchabhutas. And then it is said here, it is also consisting false ego, Mahatattva and Prakriti, as per Jiva Goswami. So these are the Ashtadhatus, which is actually the real constituents of everything, including the whole creation, the primary creation, and including the Saptadhatus. It's all made possible by the different combination of the Bhumir, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, and Kham, and these other things. Pradhana, Mahatattva, false ego, and Prakriti. So all these things put together becomes a gross body, or Stula Sharira. Stula means the gross body. And then Shukadeva Goswami goes on to explain the subtle invisible form. What is that? Amuni Bhagavat Rupe, here it is. Ataparam Sukshmatam Avyaktam Nirvisheshanam Anadi Madhya Nidanam Nityam Van Manasaha. So the subtle body or Sukshma Sharira is made up of 3 things. What are the 3 things? False ego, the mind, and the intelligence. So it is said here, it's an invisible form, without qualities and without any form, because it cannot be perceived by any material senses. So all the senses that are manifested before, it cannot be used to see any of the subtle forms of mind, intelligence, and ego. And so in order to see that, one has to have a subtle vision. Only then they can see the mind, intelligence. In fact, the subtle body or the Sukshma Sharira also has a form, but that cannot be perceived by the material senses. It can be seen by subtle senses who are very highly enabled, like the demigods can see that subtle forms of our own bodies, and including the universal form. So the Lord manifests the subtle body also, because the mind, intelligence, ego has to be manifested. And this is actually a part of what does the mind do? The mind does accepting and rejecting. Oh, this is nice to me, this is not nice to me. Accept and reject. And the senses connect to the sense objects. So you have senses created, you have the sense object created. Immediately the senses become attracted to the sense object and they feed into the mind. And the mind does 2 things, accept and reject. This is nice to me, I accept it. This is not nice to me, I reject it. And then the intelligence, as it is said here, the 31st verse, 32nd verse, Gunatmanam Gunatmakani Indriyani Bhutadi Prabhava Gunaha. So the Indriya is always affected by the 3 modes of material nature. Gunatmakani Indriyani. So Indriyani is affected with the three modes of material nature, the influence of the three modes, the senses connect to the sense objects, and that is the primary source of creation as per Bhagavatam. It says Bhutadi Prabhavaha Guna. Bhutadi means what? Bhuta means what? What is Bhuta?
The ghost. Is it ghost?
Not ghosts. In this case, it is the living entities. Bhuta Adi. Adi means all the living entities. All the living entities is there, or it's originating, or is based upon these gunas. The gunas is the primary basis for the living entities to exist. Yes or no? The living entities, they are all completely affected with the three modes of material nature. So three modes of material nature is completely controlling all the living entities in the material world, the conditioned state. So manaha sarva vikaratmana. So manaha, what does it mean? Sarva vikratmana. So it is accepting and rejecting. And bhutatir vijnana rupini. And here buddhir. Buddhir means intelligence. Intelligence does deliberation. So mind does accepting and rejecting. The intelligence does deliberation. So it deliberates. So the intelligence is coupled very tightly with the memory. So we have the experience of the past, of the present, and we use the past experience to judge the present. So the present determination and discrimination of whether it is really favorable or not favorable is done based upon the past experience. Past experiences adds to the body of the knowledge, and that knowledge helps us to decide upon whether this is good or bad. And that is, deliberation is done by the intelligence. Mind is very soon, it reacts very soon, accept and reject. As soon as something nice is there, it immediately says, oh, very nice, let me accept it. Or it is not good, oh, it is very nice, not nice. Medicine is bitter, not nice, reject it. So that is the immediate impression that is brought forth by the mind. But the intelligence is also acting on the same information given by the senses. But the intelligence does deliberation. It deliberates and then it decides based on the past experience, knowledge of what is heard, what is seen, or what is experienced. So all that information is processed and gives you a verdict. It is yes, accepted or rejected. So based upon the different body of knowledge. That is buddhi. So all these three things constitute the subtle body of Sukshma Sharira. So we saw about the universal form, the gross body, and we saw the universal form, the subtle body. So these two different descriptions are given here. So forth till 34. And then the 35th verse is what we are seeing today, where it is said, these two different bodies, both the subtle body or the Sukshma Sharira or the Sthula Sharira, the gross body, both of them are not accepted by pure devotees, or it is rejected by pure devotees. So the three subtle bodies is actually the manaha, the indriya, the intelligence and the false ego. All of them is actually the maya shrishti, the modes of material nature or the illusory potency of the world. So that is also part of the universal form. The external potency, external manifestation of universal form has the demigods, has all Brahma, Shiva, everybody there on the parts of the universal form. But what about the subtle body? The subtle body is actually the gunas, the illusory potency of the Lord. Hiranmayena patrena. So the illusory potency which is blocking us from seeing the Lord face to face. So that is the Maya Srishti. The Maya is which is the engine behind everything, universal form. So it does the Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya. Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya, Sadhana, Bhakti, Shakti, Rekha, Maye, Vachasya, Bhuvanani, Vibharti, Durga, Ichana, Rukma, Piyascha, Vacheshta, Tesha, Govindamadi, Purusham, Maharaja. So Srishti, Sthiti, Pralaya is completely managed by Shakti, Rekha. And Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga. So Durga Devi, or the external potency of the Lord, is the one which is actually the subtle form of the Supreme Lord. Gross form is all the demigods, the subtle form is the Maya, illusory potency. So, pure devotees, they do not want either of both. They do not want the demigod's part, or they do not want the Maya part, the illusory potentiality part. They want to reject it. That is what is said here. Ube api na grihnanti. Both of this, it is rejected by the pure devotees. Avipaschitaha. Vipaschitaha means what? Vipa means vipra, coming from the word vipra, learned person. Not just learned in terms of material, the theoretical knowledge, but also paschitaha, paschati, one who is seen. So both jnana and vijnana, savijnana. Both of them is the truth seer, called vipaschitaha. A good example of vipaschita is going to be there in the purport, and I will come to that very soon. So it's a very important thing to understand. So we saw about the universal forms, gross body, the senses, the saptadhatus, and which is made up of ashtadhatus, so all that. And then we saw subtle body made up of the maya, illusory potency. Then we saw that devotees are rejecting, pure devotees are rejecting both. So, of course, we know the reason why they are rejecting both. So it requires a lot of mental strength to reject both. Because the universal form means the demigods with all the powers, with all the grandeur, with all the siddhis to control the past, present and future. So if your devotee is rejecting all that, that means he doesn't want any assistance from any of the demigods. So he doesn't want, because he only wants the shelter of the Supreme Personality of God. Nothing else. He's not interested. The demigods, you come and protect me. No. So he's only interested in the Supreme Lord, completely surrendering to the Supreme Lord. The mood of Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam, complete surrender. And then they do not want the Maya also, illusory potency. So sometimes we have seen in the Bhagavatam also, many times the devotees, they want to see the Maya potency. Like one good example is Markandeya Rishi. Both canto you will see. Markandeya Rishi, he did a lot of tapasya for so many thousands of years. And when the Lord appeared in front of him, so he was very pleased. So he said, what do you want? And Markandeya Rishi said, I want to see your illusory potency. That's a very wrong choice. After making so much tapasya, having the audience of the Supreme Lord face to face, he is saying that I want to see the illusory potency. Similarly, Lord Shiva also, he wanted to desire to see the Mohini Rupa of the Lord. And he was also bewildered in that way. So it is the pure devotees can reject both the illusory potency or the powers of the illusory potency and also the powers of the demigods, the gross and the subtle. And then, so why it is said in the purport? The personalists think of the absolute personality of God in two different ways, as above mentioned. On the one hand, they worship the Lord in Vishwarupa, or all-pervading universal form. On the other, they think the Lord's unmanifested, incredible, indescribable, subtle form. So these are the two things. The materialists, they are attracted to the Vishwarupa. Because the materialists think they want happiness and satisfaction in all ways. Because all the demigods can give us all happiness. If we want good health, go to Surya. If you want good, happy life, go to Parvati or Lord Shiva. Then if you want very good opulent life, then go to Indra. So like that, all the different material necessities are fulfilled by the demigods. So universal form worship is very, very attractive for them. So theories of pantheism or monism are respectively applicable to these two conceptions as strictly as gross and subtle. But both of them are rejected by the learned pure devotees of the Lord because they are aware of the factual position. That's very important. Vipaschita means, as I said, one who has seen the truth and also one who has theoretically understood the truth. So they are able to reject the factual position. They know from factual position that this is all false or temporary. This is very clearly mentioned in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So, adrishta purvam hishito asmi drishtva vayena cha pravyatitam mano me tat eva me darshaya deva rupam prasida devesha jagannivasa. So Arjuna, as a pure devotee of the Lord, never previously saw the contemplated universal form of the Lord. But when he did see, his curiosities were satisfied. But he was not happy to see such a form of the Lord because of his attachment as a pure devotee. He was afraid to see the gigantic form of the Lord. He therefore prayed to the Lord to assume his four-handed Narayana or Krishna form, which alone could please Arjuna. So Arjuna was not a Vipaschita before. He was not even theoretically fully aware. So he learned it from Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna spoke about 10 chapters. In the 11th chapter, he wanted to see it. Okay, you spoke about theoretically all the different things about your grandeur, your different, especially in the 10th chapter, he's describing his the different elements of the creation, which is his manifestation, where he is manifested in different forms, Vibhuti Yoga. And then in the 11th chapter, once he heard the Vibhuti Yoga, that is manifested like this, and king of all the demigods says, I am Indra, I am the Gajendra, I am the king of all elephants, so you are so and so department, well and good, nice. So can you all show everything in one picture, in one form, the panoramic complete vision of past, present and future. So that is when he had that desire. My Lord, can you show me the universal form? I want desiring to see. So then he sees it also. He hears it and then he sees it. And sees the universal form and then he becomes a Vipaschita. He is both theoretically knowledgeable and also he has seen it. Then he immediately rejects universal form. Thank you so much. I don't want to see it anymore. I want your four-handed forms, and that is more pleasing to me. And Krishna assumes the four-handed form, then he assumes the two-handed form. Undoubtedly, the Lord has the supreme potency to exhibit himself in multifarious forms, but the pure devotee of the Lord are interested in his forms that are eternally exhibited in the abode of the Lord, known as Tripada Vibhuti or Kingdom of God. So Ekapada means 1/4 of creation, Tripada means 3/4 of creation. 3/4 of creation is the spiritual world, where God is manifesting different spiritual forms in his different Vaikuntha lokas and also in his Golokatam. The Vishwarupa exhibited in a material manifestation as unlimited hands and unlimited dimensions, with everything unlimited. Pure devotees of the Lord worship him in his Vaikuntha forms as Narayana or Krishna. Sometimes the same Vaikuntha forms, the Lord of material or in the material world also, by his grace as Lord Rama, Krishna, Nrishimhadeva, etc. So which means to say, there are many other forms which is not manifested in the material world, in the spiritual world. So Krishna is unlimited, it's said, is unlimited different Vaikuntha lokas. And definitely we don't see all of them in the material world. We only see different incarnations, different yugas, Yuga avatars, Lila avatars, and many other avatars. Yuga avatar, Lila avatar, Purusha avatar, and Satyavesh avatar, so many incarnations there. But we only see some of them in the material world. There are many of them which we do not see. So it may be manifested in different kalpa, or it may not even be manifested in this universe, in Brahmana. Going ahead, the pure devotees also worship them. Usually the features shown in the material world have no existence of Vaikuntha planets. Thus they are not accepted as the pure devotees. So whatever is manifested in the material world, namely the universal form, the illusory potency, has no comparison to the supreme form in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, the Lord is manifesting His wonderful, beautiful forms, which is completely Satchitananda. So it is full of bliss, it is full of knowledge, and it is full of eternity. Whereas the universal form is neither eternal, it is temporary as long as the temporary manifestation is there. Neither it is fully blissful. Just like here we saw Arjuna was trembling after seeing the universal form. So it is not giving so much bliss for a devotee. What the pure devotees worship from the very beginning are the eternal forms of Lord existing in the Vaikuntha planets. Non-devotee impersonalists imagine the material forms of the Lord, and ultimately they merge in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti of the Lord. Whereas the pure devotees of the Lord are worshippers of the Lord both in the beginning and also the perfect stage of salvation. The worship of the pure devotee never stops, whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops after attainment of salvation. So worship of the materialist, it stops after his material desires are fulfilled. He doesn't worship anymore. As soon as his material desires are fulfilled, he doesn't worship any demigods. As soon as for the impersonalist, as soon as he gets Brahman, he doesn't worship anymore. He thinks he's achieved all perfection. But for a devotee, it never stops, it never ceases. So he goes beyond Brahman, goes on to see Supreme Lord face to face. And somebody sees Supreme Lord face to face, his beautiful form, automatically he wants to be blissful in serving him. Because he is the source of all bliss. So Vaisaha, the source of all happiness. So by serving Krishna, one gets the ultimate happiness, just incomparable with what impersonalist gets. The impersonalist also gets happiness. Happiness because of absence of suffering. The materialist is tormented by different kinds of sufferings. And so he seeks happiness from the demigods. And as soon as he gets happy, he thinks he doesn't have to worry about it. The impersonalist goes a step beyond for sure. He goes on to find that this happiness is eternal. Because there is no suffering in the Brahma Jyoti. And Brahma Jyoti also is a sense of happiness, fulfillment. Because you are actually basking in the Brahma Jyoti. And that gives a lot of happiness, a sense of satisfaction, a sense of containment. But that is not sufficient, that is not comparable to serving the Lord face to face. That's very important to understand. This Brahma Jyoti is also there. There are people who attain Brahma Jyoti, like Shukadeva Goswami was saying, Sridhar Brahmavadi, and four Kumaras were Brahmavadis. They were happy in the Brahma Jyoti, in the meditation of Brahman. But then, when they saw the Supreme Lord face to face, when they smelled the tulsi that is offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, or when they heard about the beautiful description of the Lord, like Shukadeva Goswami. So he was meditating on Brahman, but when the two verses, the parrot came and spoke to him. As soon as he heard the verses, immediately his desire to hear about it was triggered. And he went on to seek for his father. His father was calling for him in the beginning. Shukadeva, please do not go. He was calling him, he was pleading with him. Shukadeva Goswami left. He left his father and he just kept going. But then when he heard these two verses from the Bhagavatam spoken by this parrot, immediately he became attracted and he came back to his father and he wanted to hear the entire Bhagavatam. So that is the power of the Supreme Lord. Rupa, pastimes, and then the next verse. Nama Rupa Kriya Dathe. Nama, the Lord's names, Rupa, the Lord's forms, the Lord's activities, they are not comparable to anything to do with Brahman. It's not even a drop of what the materialist experience. What the materialist experience is a little bit of satisfaction. So just like in a good example the Bhagavatam describes is someone who is actually running in the forest, who is being chased by a tiger, but again he falls into a gorge, and then he is in the well, he is tormented by the tiger's dog, and there are rats gnawing on the branches that he is holding on, and there are snakes waiting to devour him in the bottom. So he is in such a very pitiable position, and there he is trying to lick the honey that is dropping, and trying to enjoy. Oh, what a beautiful, what a tasty honey. He is thinking like that. The materialist enjoyment is only that much. He is only getting a drop of the honey. But the impersonalist, yes, he is getting the whole nectar of honey. But the pure devotee of the Lord is actually really tasting the honey. The impersonalists only get to see the honey. But the real devotee who goes to the spiritual form, who associates with the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha Lokas, gets to taste the Supreme Lord's nectarian, honey-like face and the nectarian lotus feet. So that is the beauty of what a devotee experiences. It is not even comparable to what the impersonalists experience, or not even comparable to what materialists experience. Let's go further. So the pure devotee never stops worshipping. Whereas the worship of the impersonalist stops in the attainment of salvation. when he emerges in the impersonal form of the Lord, known as Brahma Jyoti. Therefore, the pure devotees of the Lord are described here as Vipaschitaha, or the learned who are in knowledge of the Lord perfectly. That's extremely important. A devotee is not just an emotional devotee who is just in the emotional platform. He will not be perfect because he may make emotional mistakes. But whereas when he is in knowledge, then he automatically transcends that and is situated very safely in the lotus feet of the Lord. So that is very beautifully attained by the reciting of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the knowledge and renunciation, all both in one go. So, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnananam Tatahetukam. So you get both Jnanam as well as Vairagyam by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from the Lord. It is the Lord's Supreme Lord in the form of words. It is the Shabda Brahman, and it is the Supreme Lord in the form of the words. So one who tastes it every day automatically gets the necessary knowledge and also gets the renunciation from material attraction. So that is what we really need. So one becomes a Vipaschitaha not by learning Sanskrit or not by learning different Vedas. It's not required. So just reading Srimad Bhagavatam, one becomes Vipaschitaha. And he becomes both theoretically sound and also spiritually aware, because he sees the truth as it is. So that is the beauty of reading the transcendental words of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, and also the transcendental words about Krishna in Srimad Bhagavatam. So both of them are very important. These are like two eyes for a Vipassana. One should constantly recite Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and observe the transcendental activities. That's the next verse. He, the personality of Godhead, manifests himself in transcendental form, being the subject of his transcendental name, quality, pastimes, entourage, and transcendental variegatedness, although his unaffected by all activities appears to be so engaged. So the Lord's activities, description about Lord's activities is very purifying to us. Constant chanting, constant remembrance will purify our words, all the senses. We just spoke about the senses, the manifestation of senses. How does the senses get purified? By constant worshipping and reciting of Srimad Bhagavatam. So our tongue gets purified, our eyes gets purified, our ear gets purified, our sense of touch gets purified. So all of them completely satisfied. And so tomorrow being a very special day of Lord Krishna's appearance, he appears for us in order to give us a transcendental nature, so that we can taste his wonderful activities, we can remember his wonderful form, and we can constantly remember, and in the mood of separation, we think about him in order to join him in his eternal pastimes. We'll stop here for any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Prabhu, my question is like a few different things. First, the universe is made up of material elements like earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind also, intelligence and false ego. Are they three part of the universe, part of the whole structure? Or is that the mind, the subtle elements which you described, those are inside the universal form and also the material universe, correct? And so as each one of us grows up with a soul, that's us, but we have these same layers, right? All those elements, including the subtle. Each and every living entity is born with that, correct?
Yes.
So how would this material intelligence, material human form, supposed to be a very exalted form in the whole evolution of the situation we have, where we can attain Krishna consciousness and all that. So how does one simply get rid of the false ego? Is there a certain practice that can dissolve that or get be free from that? Or?
The false ego, the mind and intelligence, they all manifest as the different stages of creation. First thing that gets manifested as a primary creation is the five elements. The five elements also is coming from Mahatattva. From Mahatattva comes Pradhana, and Pradhana, three modes of material nature is acting upon them, and then comes this five elements. The Bhumi, Rapo, Nano, Vayu, come. Five elements is first manifested. But the mind, intelligence, the false ego is the next to get manifested in the life. And mind intelligence is created as part of this universal form creation. Because mind intelligence is all part of the body. Without the body, they cannot exist independently. But whereas the five elements can exist independently, it doesn't require a soul to be there. They can be as in their own forms, independent of the soul being there. But the mind intelligence and false ego cannot exist without a soul. So you can only bring in all those things when there is a secondary creation happening. Brahma is starting to create the different life forms. Then you have to attach them with the body's different mind, appropriate intelligence, and appropriate ego. So ego is that which makes you think you are the body. It's a false ego. But so in order to give up the false ego, or deha abhimana, so one has to take up in the process of spiritual life, which really dissolves a false ego. Because a false ego is a temporary manifestation. As long as the material body is there, the false ego will influence you. But when as practice of devotional service, as a practice of this acquiring the proper devotional knowledge, this false ego slowly dissolves itself and merges with the real ego. Real ego being that we are the eternal servants of the Lord. And what is that verse from Chaitanya says that Jivera Swarupavai Krishna Nityadas. That is the real ego. So the false ego merges into the real ego. It dissolves itself and the real ego manifests. So that happens by the practice of devotional service. The practice of constant hearing about the Supreme Lord, constant reading of Bhagavad Gita, and constant worship of the deities. The Lord also has to give the mercy. So Krishna says that this material energy of mine is very difficult to overcome. So Maya Duratya, it is very difficult to overcome. Mayeva hi prapatyati maya vedantaravati. So only by surrendering unto me, prapatyate, so I remove that ignorance. So it is also our effort, and it is also Krishna's grace. Then the ignorance is removed. The false ego slowly dissolved. The real ego manifests. And so that's what we see from the life of Prahlad Maharaj also. And Prahlad Maharaj at the end of his life, so the death comes, and then he ascends on the death and climbs on the Vaikuntha. The vehicles that has come to take him to Vaikuntha. So that he gives up the false ego. At the time Bhagavatam describes, false ego is taken out from him. And by his own, of course, purity and also the Lord's grace. Both of them are required. It cannot happen by just our own efforts. Nobody can cross over the Maya, Mahamaya. It's difficult. So it requires our effort plus the Lord's grace. And that's when it can happen. I hope I answered the question. Any questions? Any comments? Prabhu?
No, it was very nice.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Janmashtami Mahotsav ki jai.
So